Well, I might fix all your problems in this video, probably not all of them, but I do want to help you understand which products to use for spot treating, and maybe we can come to a conclusion by the end of this video of like what is the right product for you, or maybe combination of products for spot treating your lawn. Today's video is sponsored by Yardbook. I've been running a lawn care business for a long time, and since 2015 I've been running Yardbook. I had to think about that for a minute. If you need a software to run your lawn care business, go to yardbook.com and sign up for a free account. I've got a lot of products to show you. I've got some weeds to show you, and we're going to figure out which products will kill which weeds and which combination is going to get you the best results, hopefully, for your lawn. So let's get started right now. Well, I told you I had a lot of products, and I'm always hesitant in these situations to show you this many products because I'm like, they're gonna think, you know, I gotta go buy all these to actually kill weeds. That's not the point. This is just what I have, and I have got more, but I didn't want to overwhelm anybody. But let's talk about these because there's different purposes, and I just do want to correct this idea that you can just go pick anything that says weed control on it at the big box store and it's just going to kill all your weeds. There are special products for special weeds, but again, we don't need all these. We can talk about which combination or which one of these is going to be best for your situation. All right, now super fast here, let's talk about weeds. You got warm season weeds, you got cool season weeds. I'm filming this in spring, so we're getting some of both. We got the warm season weeds starting to show up. We got the cool season weeds that are very mature. You got broadleaf weeds, grassy weeds, sedges. Not every product's gonna kill all those. So let me give you a few examples and then we'll talk about specifics with these products. Now, for instance, we talk about just broadleaf weeds, and these typically are gonna be the easiest to kill. This is American burnweed, very easy to kill. There's another example of a broadleaf weed, broadleaf weed. So these are typically the ones that, you know, not that hard to knock out. We don't need to use that overly expensive product for these. Now, when you get to, well, let me say that. I almost need to take back my statement because I just walked up on this guy right here, and this one looks a little unusual, but I think that's Virginia buttonweed. I could be wrong, but if it's not, it looks very similar. Virginia buttonweed's one of those that's broadleaf weed, but very, very difficult to kill. But we can still get some control on it. Now again, we're looking at categories. So cool season, warm season, that's kind of one set of categories, but then also broadleaf, sedges, and grassy weeds. So I've showed you some broadleaf weeds. Let me show you a sedge, and then we'll look at some grassy weeds, and then we'll show you the products. All right, so on our sedges, you got things like this. You got, they call it nut sedge. You hear it called nutgrass. It's really a sedge. And the saying goes, sedges have edges, and I think that has to do with the triangular base down here. So it's sort of a triangular base here where my fingers are. Anyway, nut sedge, very difficult to kill, not too difficult to actually control and get some results on. And we're going to talk about that because it's a very, very common weed. Now there's purple nut sedge, there's yellow nut sedge. To talk about that, I think the one I was just showing you, I'm not 100% sure, but I think over here I can show you a clear difference between purple and yellow, and that will be helpful when you look at the products. Now let's talk about the grassy weeds real quick. You know, there's also perennial and annual weeds. I should have mentioned that as well. But for what we're talking about for spot treating weeds, that's not going to matter quite as much. So in this situation, this is Dallas grass, a perennial grassy weed. Broadleaf weeds also get very big sometimes. Look at that guy. And here's a clear example of, we're talking about the nut sedge. Look at this, a lighter colored leaf and very tall, upright plant with a real sharp point on the end of it. So this is not sharp as in it's gonna hurt me, but a real narrow. So this is our yellow nut sedge, where the other was more of a purple nut sedge. It's gonna lay flatter, a darker colored leaf, and a duller point. It's gonna be our purple nut sedge. There's also Kalinga, which is gonna be a type of sedge as well, and there's different types of Kalingas and all that. We're not gonna get into all those details, but these will help you, again, when we look at the products. It's like a cool season grassy weed right here, Poa annual, also annual bluegrass is what it can be known as well. So another grassy weed, but again, a cool season one, an annual weed, so it means it's going to be dying out soon, thankfully, where that Dallas grass earlier was a perennial, meaning it's going to just come back from the same spot every single year. And where Poa annual is a cool season grassy weed, it's going to germinate probably in the fall and die out when the weather gets hot. You've got crabgrass would be also a warm season grassy weed. So it's going to germinate typically late winter, early spring, and die out when the weather gets cold. as you approach winter. So hopefully that made sense. Now let's see about some solutions.
Now I will say this, not all weeds are equally easy to kill, okay? If you see a broadleaf weed and you say, well, it's supposed to kill all broadleaf weeds, some of them are more difficult, but we're just trying to get you educated on what's a good combination that's gonna work in most of the situations. Now, if we're talking about what's the best product, okay, we got all of these, what's the best product? What it would consider something being the best?
And when I think of the best, I think there's more than that. Of course, I wanna know what's most effective, but I also wanna factor in cost a little bit. You know, I'm thinking about if I had a football team and I had a certain amount of money to spend on my team, and I spent $50 million on my quarterback, and there was one for $10 million, which is a lot of money still, who was almost as good as the $50 million one, that might actually be better for me. Okay, so I want to talk about cost a little bit. Now, if we're just going best no matter cost, okay, but sometimes the cost is a factor in for most people's decisions, so we can mention that as well.
Think of those categories again: broadleaf weeds, grassy weeds, sedges. So you got products that are strictly broadleaf weed products. You got products that are basically pretty much just a sedge product, and you got others that mostly going to work on grassy weeds and maybe a little bit of variety, and then you got others that are like combination products. So let's go through these and then we'll talk about some of the combinations I might use, because I keep these little handheld sprayers on my truck with different combinations. So change up. A very cost-effective product. Now, if you buy this big jug, it might cost you about $300. So it comes in a smaller container, and I can put some links out there in the description if you want to check these out. But Change Up is very cost-effective and very, very good at killing broadleaf weeds. Going to do basically nothing for your sedges and just about nothing for your grassy weeds. So broadleaf weeds. The other thing we're talking about is what kind of grasses can you use it on. Change Up is Bermuda, zoysia, centipede, St. Augustine, as well as some cool season grasses. Now, I don't deal with cool season grasses much, so I don't not going to be as up to date on all those. And there's some products that are here that not shown that would work on cool season grasses as well, but some of these can be. Now, Celsius, another often used broadleaf weed herbicide. So many people out there that are spraying weeds for a living, like me, are using either Celsius or Change Up, are two very common products in the warm season turf because of their diversity, and they're going to work really good on broadleaf weeds. Now, Celsius gives you added bonus of giving you some effectiveness on Kalinga, probably not so much on the yellow or purple nutsedge, but also on some grassy weeds. It can have some effectiveness on Dallas grass, maybe even some effectiveness on foxtail. So anyway, you know, you're going to get a little bit of the poa annua we saw, a little bit of grassy weeds as well, and even the Kalinga, which is a sedge. Now, Celsius Extra, this is what the manufacturers are doing, and I think it's a good thing. They take Celsius, which was known to be a good broadleaf with some sedge and some grassy weed properties that or helps with those as well, and they put Celsius Extra. So what is that? They basically took Celsius and added a sedge product. I think it's the same active ingredient that's in Pro Sedge, which is also the same active ingredient in Sedge Hammer, if you're familiar with that. Now you got the broadleaf control of Celsius, but it's also going to be improved on the yellow and purple nut sedge, so that's great. Now, of course, it's going to be a little bit higher cost, but now you got a more well-rounded product. Tribute Total, very good kind of all-around product. If you just want broadleaf, grassy, sedges, the whole package, then you got Tribute Total. Now, what's the downside of it? Well, one's the cost. It's going to be more expensive. Two is going to be it's just for Bermuda and zoysia lawns only, so it's going to be a little bit more limited. Then you got these two, and these are both fairly new to the market. You got South Side and you got Southpaw. Now, something to consider when you're looking at these products. South Side here, this bottle, I don't remember, it's $300 or $400 or so. I know, just pick yourself up off the floor if you fell out of your chair. Now, this is a mistake I think a lot of people make. Let me look at the camera to tell you this.
When it's $300 or $400, and I just forget, I didn't look it up. What you want to understand, especially if you're a business owner, is the cost per application. You know, how much does it cost me for every 1,000 square feet of grass I'm spraying? Not necessarily the cost of the bottle. Now, I understand for a homeowner, the cost of the bottle does play a role in it as well, because you're like, $400 for a bottle that it might last me for 15 years, you know. But for those in business, the cost of the bottle should not be nearly as important in my mind as the actual cost per application.
To prove my point, you know, if this is $300, but when I'm out there spraying the yard, it's costing me like 30 cents per thousand, and that's maybe not exactly right, but I think it's close. Versus maybe another product that only costs $100. You think, oh wow, this costs $300, that costs $100. Well, the other product might be 5 times more expensive to spray than this. So let's just use some common sense. But again, for a homeowner, you might not want to buy a $400 bottle or something. I understand that. But south side, we're going to get some of the sedge control, both and yellow nut sedge, purple nut sedge, but also some broadleaf control because it has metsulfuron in it, and that can actually control Bahia grass as well. So, and in South Paw is similar, but again, in a different formulation. This proves my point I was making before. Let's say this is $300 or $400, and this is like $90-something. Well, actually, cost per application, this is slightly cheaper. Now, again, a homeowner might want to buy this one because you're not spending $300 or $400 on one bottle. And this one does also have dicamba in it, which this one doesn't. So it's very similar ingredients, but this one adds dicamba, which is going to probably improve your broadleaf weed control. So one of the things I like is something like Southpaw, not too expensive. And I'll tell you the negative with it here in just a minute. But you're going to get sedge control, you're going to get grassy weed control like on a warm season lawn. If you've got some cool season grasses popping up like Poa annua or annual ryegrass or something like that popping up in the yard, it will help with that, or fescue clumps, it can help with that. You're going to get broadleaf control. I mean, it's just really an all-around product that can be excellent at a reasonable cost. Now, the negative with Southpaw is it just came out, and I've ordered 2 bottles, and I hadn't got a measuring spoon yet. So I'm hoping that's going to be worked out soon. If you go buy it, ask them, hey, do you have a measuring spoon that's going to come with it? So great product, just need a way to measure it. Certainty. Now this is going to be a product that's going to be a good sedge product. Broadleaf, not so much, but grassy weeds, it can definitely help with that. And actually these two have the same active ingredient as Certainty in it, but also give you some broadleaf control, where the Certainty is pretty much a sedge, yellow, purple, and kalinga, and grassy weeds, but not much on the broadleaves. Pro Sedge is pretty much yellow and purple nut sedge, not quite as good on kalinga, not good on grassy or broadleaf weeds. Solero, a more all-around product at a higher price, all-around sedge product, I should say. So going to help with yellow, purple nut sedge, as well as kalinga. Dismiss NXT is going to give you some broadleaf control as well as sedge control. Now, anytime you got Dismiss, which is sulfentrazone, you're going to run the risk of burning the turf a little bit. So just understand that, the risk with this one, you get a little turf burn, but great for burning down yellow nut sedge, kalinga, and even some broadleaf weeds. Same with Blindside, broadleaf and sedge control as well, but it's also got that sulfentrazone, so it's going to maybe cause a little turf damage if you overspray or if it's too hot or things of that nature. So with the sulfentrazone, you get some really good yellow nut sedge and kalinga control, not quite as good on purple nut sedge, but with the risk of a little turf burns.
Hope you hung with me through that, but so like, how do we come to a conclusion here? What do we need to be using? Let me just tell you, like, practically speaking, I've kind of introduced you to these products. Now, what do I practically do? What do I keep on my truck? And let me say this, these are not the only products I use. It depends on the time of year. If it's early spring or late winter, I may have Revolver mixed up in a little handheld, you know, spot treating Poa annua with, or Negate, something like that. So I may have glyphosate in there in the winter on a dormant Bermuda grass lawn. I can spray Dallas grass clumps with glyphosate. So I didn't show every product, but I've just introduced you to a lot of them.
So practically speaking, what do I do? Well, a lot of times I will take a broadleaf product and mix it with a sedge product. Okay, the grassy weeds hopefully are not as big a problem, and I might keep a special mixture just for the grassy weeds in that situation. So let me give you an example. I might have Change Up. Remember the benefit of it? Not that expensive. Excellent broadleaf control, and I might mix it with, let's say, Pro Sedge or Certainty. Again, Certainty is going to give you a little bit better control on the kalinga. Pro Sedge, a cheaper option, but not as good on kalinga, but good on yellow and purple nut sedge. So when I take that, an inexpensive broadleaf product, and I mix it with a sedge product, now I'm covered on my sedges and broadleaves for the most part. Not so good on the grassy, again, unless you go with Certainty, because it'll also give you the little grassy benefit. So, you know, that Change Up Pro Sedge combo, not a bad combo. Change Up Certainty combo, not a bad combo, even better, but a little bit higher cost for that. Change Up Solero, you know, again, not a bad combo at all. fall. Going to help you with most of your sedges as well as your broadleafs. So that's one example. Again, another easier way to do it is just get southpaw or south side. You know, that way you're basically getting the same active ingredient as Certainty. So you're going to get the sedges, you're going to get the grassy weeds on a warm season lawn. Again, don't use it on your cool season lawn, please. Read the label, whatever you do, wear your PPE. But you're also going to get your broadleaf weed control. So this is like a one-stop shop for warm season grasses, Bermuda, zoysia, centipedes, Anocene. You just use this, and that's all you had to have. So again, you can do that if you want it extra simple. If it's Bermuda or zoysia only, Tribute Total is going to be a good option. You know, a little bit higher cost. Celsius Extra, another combo product. So you know, you could go like the combo product route. Celsius Extra, Southpaw, Southside, Tribute Total, those are just spray that. You don't have to mix anything with it. They're going to be pretty good. And a lot of this depends on the weeds you have. Or, you know, even Blindside, if it's just yellow nut sedge and Kalinga and broadleaf weeds, then Dismiss NT or Blindside would be good. But if you're going to go with something that's cheaper, but just as a broadleaf product like Change Up, or mostly broadleaf product like Celsius, I mean, that's what it's probably best at, though it does have some effective substance. Then you might want to mix a sedge product in there with it in the summer when sedges are going crazy. So you got Celsius and Certainty, a combination I use a lot. You know, not the cheapest combination, but it's going to pretty much cover you on just about any weed you can find. So that's a combination that's very, very good. Again, simplified, you could just go with Southpaw if you get that magic measuring spoon. I like these little 2-gallon pump zero things. I'll put a link to that as well. They are great. I don't know what they cost. They're probably around $100 or something, but they're good. I don't like pumping up the sprayers anymore. I guess I'm just getting lazy. Personally, I use Celsius and Certainty mixed together a lot. I want to start using Southpaw a good bit as well. A lot of times I'll keep Blindside in there. It's good for like broom sedge. It's good for wild onions, wild garlic. I might have so I got 4 or 5 sprayers on there. I wouldn't do that if I had a lot of employees and was sending them out. I would probably keep it much simpler and just give them 1 or 2 sprayers that had something that would be broad combination, like the Celsius Certainty, or like the Change Up in Certainty, or like the Change Up in Solero, or like the Change Up in Pro Sedge, or like Southpaw by itself, or what, you know, so like Celsius Extra. I don't know. I'd make something combo that was just like, hey, you don't even have to know the names of all the weeds, man. You see a weed, spray it with this, and it's gonna have most effectiveness. I say most, I probably should say it differently. It's gonna have some effectiveness on it. Maybe not the greatest product for every single weed, but a pretty good product for almost any weed that you're gonna find. Hope it's helpful. If you haven't done so, subscribe. I also want to talk to you about LawnCareLife.com. That's where you find the Weed Control and Fertilization Academy. You want to learn the stuff that I'm teaching on YouTube enough to get out and start your own business, go check that out. There's pricing charts. There's all kinds of stuff over there. So check it out if you get time. There's even the Bermuda Zoysia Academy, where we go in much more depth on how to care for a Bermuda and Zoysia lawn that would even appeal to homeowners. We'll see you guys in the next video.